Long before the thunderous footsteps of dinosaurs echoed across the continents, Earth was a realm of raw, untamed forces and astonishing evolutionary experiments. The surface was a canvas of extremes, towering volcanoes, endless deserts of stone, and shallow seas teeming with possibilities. This was the Paleozoic Era, a span of time that began over 541 million years ago and endured for nearly 300 million years. It was an age of relentless transformation, where continents collided and split, and the very chemistry of the oceans and atmosphere was in constant flux. The Paleozoic was not merely a chapter in Earth's history, it was the prologue to all complex life, the crucible in which the first true animals and plants emerged and diversified. In these ancient waters, life began to experiment with new forms and strategies. Microbial mats and simple, multicellular organisms clung to rocks, while strange, soft-bodied creatures drifted in the nutrient-rich currents. The innovations of this era, hard shells, jointed limbs, and complex eyes, set the stage for the explosion of diversity that would follow, laying the groundwork for every living thing that would ever walk, swim, or fly. The Paleozoic was a saga of creation and destruction, of cataclysmic storms and tranquil seas, of mass extinctions and dazzling radiations. Divided into 6 distinct periods: Cambrian, Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian, Carboniferous, and Permian, each brought its own environmental upheavals and evolutionary leaps. The Cambrian period ignited a burst of creativity as life invented new body plans and ecological roles. Trilobites, with their intricate exoskeletons, scuttled across the seafloor, while predators like Anomalocaris patrolled the ancient oceans. As the eons passed, the Ordovician brought vast shallow seas and the first coral reefs, while the Silurian saw the rise of armored jawless fish and the earliest land plants. The Devonian, often called the Age of Fishes, witnessed the evolution of powerful jaws and the first forests, their roots anchoring the soil for the first time. The Carboniferous period transformed the world with immense swampy forests, where dragonfly-like insects with meter-wide wingspans soared above dense stands of club moss and horsetail. In the Permian, the continents merged into the supercontinent Pangaea, and the climate grew harsh and unpredictable. One of the most profound moments in Earth's history occurred when vertebrates, ancestors of all land animals, crawled from the water onto the desolate shores, their lungs gulping air for the first time. The first forests rose skyward, their leafy canopies transforming the atmosphere by pumping out oxygen and locking away carbon, setting the stage for future animal giants. Each fossil layer is a page in the story of life's relentless adaptation, a record of vanished worlds and vanished creatures. The inhabitants of the Paleozoic were pioneers: trilobites, brachiopods, ammonoids, and the first vertebrates, each uniquely suited to their ever-changing environments. Their evolutionary experiments are etched into the very code of life, their successes and failures shaping the destiny of all future organisms. The first jawed fish, armored and agile, patrolled the warm, shallow seas, their descendants destined to become the rulers of the oceans and, eventually, the land. The earliest plants, simple mosses and liverworts, clung to the bare rock, their green tissues capturing sunlight and moisture, slowly transforming barren landscapes into living carpets. To explore the Paleozoic is to witness the birth of ecosystems, the first tangled webs of predator and prey, and the relentless march of adaptation. The continents themselves were restless, drifting across the globe, colliding to form mountains and splitting to create new oceans, their movements shaping the climate and the course of evolution. We will journey through alien seas filled with creatures unlike anything alive today, and wander through primeval forests where the air was thick with spores and the ground trembled with the footsteps of giant arthropods. We will encounter the bizarre and the beautiful, creatures with shells, spines, and tentacles, each a marvel of evolutionary ingenuity. The Paleozoic was a world of constant struggle, where predators and prey engaged in an endless arms race, driving the evolution of speed, armor, and cunning. Across millions of years, landscapes and life forms evolved in tandem, each shaping and reshaping the other in a dynamic dance of survival. The Paleozoic era was a time of breathtaking invention, when life seized every opportunity to adapt, diversify, and thrive in a world of ceaseless change. This is the story of life's resilience, its ability to endure, to innovate, and to fill every available niche with wonder and complexity. The Paleozoic is not just ancient history, it is the foundation of the living world, a testament to the power and beauty of evolution. Our story begins in the Cambrian period, a time of extraordinary transformation, when the very fabric of life on Earth was being rewoven in ways never before seen. For billions of years, life on Earth had been simple, mostly microscopic, dominated by single-celled organisms and colonies of cyanobacteria that quietly transformed the planet's atmosphere. But then something remarkable happened. In a relatively short span of geological time, a burst of evolutionary creativity occurred, driven by genetic innovations and environmental pressures. This event is so significant that we call it the Cambrian explosion, a period when the evolutionary tree branched out with unprecedented speed and complexity. Suddenly, the oceans were filled with a dazzling array of complex animals, from filter feeders to agile swimmers, each carving out a unique ecological niche. Most of the major animal groups, or phyla, that exist today made their very first appearance in the fossil record during this incredible period, preserved in sites like the Burgess Shale under rare and exceptional conditions. It was as if nature had suddenly opened its toolbox and began experimenting with every possible body plan: segmentation, exoskeletons, jointed appendages, and more. The world of the Cambrian was starkly different from our own. The continents were barren, rocky landscapes, shaped by shifting tectonic plates and devoid of any vegetation. All of this new, vibrant life was confined to the oceans, where dynamic currents and nutrient upwellings fueled the proliferation of organisms. And what life it was! Fossils from this period, like those found in the famous Burgess Shale in Canada, reveal a world teeming with creatures that look like they belong in a science fiction story, many preserved in exquisite detail. There were animals with 5 eyes, like Opabinia, equipped with a flexible proboscis for probing the seafloor. Creatures that swam or crawled upside down, such as hallucigenia, defied conventional movement and challenged the boundaries of animal design. And worms with fearsome grasping spines like the predatory priapulids hunted with specialized mouthparts, ushering in the first complex food webs. This was a time of evolutionary trial and error, where many strange designs appeared, some thriving, others vanishing forever, leaving only traces in the rocks. Among this incredible diversity, a new and dangerous role emerged: the predator, driving prey to develop new defenses and strategies for survival. The appearance of hunters sparked an evolutionary arms race that has continued ever since, with prey evolving armor, spines, and even the ability to burrow for safety. One of the most fearsome of these early predators was a creature called Anomalocaris, with circular jaws capable of crushing the hard shells of its prey. It could grow up to a half-meter long, a true giant for its time, using its streamlined body to glide swiftly through the water. It had large, complex compound eyes to spot its prey, providing a significant advantage in the dim, shifting light of ancient seas, and 2 powerful, spiny appendages at the front of its head to grab unsuspecting victims, making it a formidable hunter. Its prey, creatures like the iconic trilobites, were forced to evolve their own defenses, developing hard mineralized shells and the ability to molt as they grew. This dynamic between hunter and hunted drove much of the incredible diversification we see in the Cambrian, shaping the earliest complex ecosystems. This explosion of life was not an accident. It was likely fueled by a number of environmental changes: rising oxygen, shifting continents, and increased nutrient availability from volcanic activity. Oxygen levels in the atmosphere and oceans were on the rise, providing the energy needed for larger, more active bodies and supporting the evolution of complex tissues. The chemistry of the oceans also changed, making it easier for animals to build shells and skeletons through biomineralization, a process that would shape marine life for eons. These new hard parts not only offered protection, but also provided structural support, allowing animals to grow larger, anchor muscles, and move in new, more efficient ways. The Cambrian explosion was a pivotal moment, a biological big bang that set the stage for the entire history of animal life on Earth, launching an evolutionary experiment whose legacy still shapes the living world today. Following the creative frenzy of the Cambrian, the Ordovician period began, a new chapter in Earth's Watery saga. This was a time when life, having established its many forms, began to settle in and specialize. The seas teemed with creatures both familiar and alien, each carving out a unique niche. The world itself was changing dramatically. For much of this period, sea levels were exceptionally high, flooding the continents and creating vast, shallow, tropical seas. These submerged plains stretched for thousands of kilometers, their waters shimmering with life. These warm, nutrient-rich waters were the perfect nursery for life to flourish and diversify even further. Early coral reefs, built by primitive corals and sponges, formed labyrinthine structures that sheltered countless organisms. The Ordovician world was truly a water world, and its marine ecosystems became more complex and structured than ever before, with countless new species finding their place. Floating colonies of graptolites formed living curtains in the open ocean, while the seafloor bustled with activity. In these bustling underwater realms, life became incredibly abundant. The seafloor was carpeted with life, armored ostracods, worm-like creatures weaving through the sediment, and gardens of seaweed waving in gentle currents. Vast communities of filter feeders, such as brachiopods, which resembled clams, and delicate bryozoans, formed dense mats and fans, capturing food from the passing currents. Crinoids, beautiful animals that looked like feathery flowers on long stalks, dominated the landscape. Their arms unfurled like underwater ferns, filtering sunlight and nutrients from the gentle tides. Trilobites, the resilient survivors from the Cambrian, continued to thrive, scuttling across the seabed in a huge variety of shapes and sizes. Some burrowed for safety, while others grazed on algae or scavenged for scraps. The Ordovician was a time of great marine biodiversity, a period when the oceans were more full of life than at any previous point in Earth's history. Early fish, armored and jawless, darted through the water in shimmering schools. The competition for food and space was intense, driving evolution in new directions. Predatory starfish crept across the substrate, while agile nautiloids jetted through the open water, hunting for prey. The top of the food chain was now occupied by new and formidable predators. Eel-like conodonts with their toothy jaws lurked in the shadows, while larger hunters patrolled the reefs. Among the most impressive were the giant orthocones, a type of cephalopod related to modern squid and octopuses. These sleek hunters glided silently above the reefs, their tentacles poised to strike. These creatures lived in long, straight, cone-shaped shells, their bodies divided into chambers that helped them control buoyancy and movement. Some, like Cameroceras, were true sea monsters, with shells estimated to have reached over 9 meters in length. These giants could ambush prey with sudden bursts of speed, their tentacles wrapping around anything unfortunate enough to cross their path. They would have been the undisputed rulers of the Ordovician seas, using their tentacles to catch fish and other swimming prey. When threatened, they could vanish in a cloud of ink, leaving only ripples behind. Alongside them, the first sea scorpions, or Eurypterids, began their rise, becoming another group of successful and fearsome marine predators. These agile hunters prowled the shallows, their armored bodies glinting in the filtered sunlight. But this vibrant world was not destined to last. The Ordovician period ended in catastrophe, as the climate shifted and the seas began to change. As the continents drifted, a large landmass moved over the South Pole, triggering a severe ice age. Glaciers crept across the land, transforming the climate and chilling the seas. As huge glaciers formed, sea levels dropped dramatically, draining the shallow seas that so much life depended on. Vast stretches of seafloor were left exposed, their once thriving communities stranded and vulnerable. The waters cooled and their chemistry changed, leading to widespread extinctions. Once bustling reefs became graveyards, their inhabitants gone. This event, the Ordovician-Silurian mass extinction, was one of the most severe in Earth's history. The oceans, once vibrant and full, fell silent as species vanished in waves. It is estimated that around 85% of all marine species were wiped out, bringing a sudden and tragic end to this age of aquatic abundance. The fossilized remains left behind are silent witnesses to a world of watery wonders, now lost to time. In the aftermath of the catastrophic Ordovician extinction, the world was a place of stark contrasts and fragile hope. The Silurian period dawned with a slow, persistent recovery as life began to reclaim its foothold on a planet still reeling from devastation. As the climate stabilized, immense glaciers that once blanketed the continents gradually retreated. The melting ice released vast quantities of water, causing sea levels to rise and reshape coastlines, flooding low-lying regions and creating new shallow seas teeming with potential. In these rejuvenated oceans, life flourished once more. Coral reefs and marine ecosystems rebounded, with a diversity of invertebrates and early fish reclaiming their place in the food web. Yet the most profound transformation was unfolding not beneath the waves, but on the silent, barren continents that bordered these ancient seas. For the first time in Earth's history, life began its audacious journey onto land. This was not a sudden leap, but a gradual, epoch-spanning process that would forever alter the face of the planet. For billions of years, the continents had been desolate wastelands, endless stretches of rock, battered by wind and rain, utterly devoid of life. Now, the first pioneers, simple, resilient plants, began to colonize these inhospitable surfaces. Their arrival marked the beginning of a transformation that would eventually give rise to forests, soils, and entire terrestrial ecosystems. The earliest land plants were diminutive and unassuming, resembling modern mosses and liverworts. These organisms clung to damp rocks and mudflats, their delicate green shoots pushing up through cracks and crevices. Along the water's edge, these tiny green pioneers formed the first tenuous bridge between aquatic and terrestrial worlds, exploiting the moisture of the shoreline to survive. Among the earliest and most significant of these was Cooksonia, a plant so simple it lacked leaves, roots, or flowers, yet it represented a monumental evolutionary step. Cooksonia's structure was little more than a slender branching stem, but it was a marvel of adaptation, perfectly suited to the challenges of terrestrial life. Its most crucial innovation was the development of vascular tissue, specialized cells that could transport water and nutrients internally, allowing the plant to grow taller and survive farther from the water's edge. This internal plumbing system was a game-changer, enabling plants to colonize drier environments and paving the way for the evolution of more complex terrestrial flora. Alongside these pioneering plants, fungi also made their way onto land. These ancient fungi formed symbiotic relationships with plants, breaking down rock and organic matter to create the first primitive soils, an essential foundation for future terrestrial life. In the wake of this botanical invasion, the first animals began to explore the land. These were arthropods, creatures with jointed legs and hard exoskeletons who ventured ashore in search of new opportunities. Arthropods, including the ancestors of insects, spiders, and scorpions, were already highly successful in the oceans. Their tough exoskeletons provided both structural support and protection against desiccation, crucial for survival on dry land. These exoskeletons acted as natural armor, shielding them from the harsh terrestrial environment and preventing vital moisture loss. The earliest land-dwelling arthropods were likely similar to modern millipedes and centipedes, feeding on decaying plant material and contributing to the breakdown of organic matter, further enriching the developing soils. These first tentative steps onto land marked the birth of terrestrial ecosystems, complex networks of plants, fungi, and animals interacting in ways never before seen on Earth. While life on land was just beginning to take hold, the oceans remained a crucible of evolutionary innovation. In these waters, a new lineage of animals was rising to dominance, the jawed fish. Their appearance would forever alter the balance of marine life. The evolution of jaws allowed fish to become active predators, capable of grasping, biting, and processing a wider variety of prey. This adaptation transformed them from passive filter feeders and bottom dwellers into agile hunters, driving a new wave of evolutionary arms races in the seas. Among the earliest jawed fish was Megamastax, a formidable predator with powerful jaws capable of crushing the armored shells of its prey, demonstrating the new ecological possibilities unlocked by this innovation. The rise of jawed fish set the stage for the next great chapter in Earth's history, as fish would soon come to dominate the planet's waters, reshaping marine ecosystems and driving the evolution of countless new forms of life. The Devonian period, spanning from about 419 to 359 million years ago, is justly celebrated as the Age of Fish, a time when aquatic life exploded in diversity and complexity, transforming the world's oceans, rivers, and lakes into vibrant, bustling ecosystems. Building on the evolutionary breakthroughs of the Silurian, fish radiated into an astonishing array of forms. Some developed thick, bony armor for protection, while others became streamlined and agile, filling every conceivable ecological niche, from the shadowy depths of the open ocean to the tangled roots of freshwater swamps. The evolution of jaws was a true game-changer, unlocking new feeding strategies and allowing fish to become both formidable predators and resourceful scavengers. The seas were now patrolled by powerful and fearsome hunters, their armored bodies and crushing bites dominating the food chain. The most terrifying of these was Dunkleosteus, an armored giant that could reach lengths of up to 8 meters. Its massive bladed jaws could snap through bone and shell with a force unmatched by any other creature of its time. Dunkleosteus did not possess teeth in the modern sense. Instead, its jaws were lined with razor-sharp, bony plates that formed a self-sharpening guillotine, capable of slicing through armored prey and even other Dunkleosteus. As the apex predator of its era, Dunkleosteus reigned supreme in the ancient seas, a true monster of the deep, whose presence shaped the evolution of countless other species. While these giants ruled the open waters, other groups of fish were also thriving. Some specialized in filter feeding, others in ambush predation, and still others in scraping algae from rocks and wood. The first true sharks, like the sleek and agile Cladocelache, emerged with a radically different evolutionary strategy. Instead of heavy armor, they relied on speed, flexibility, and keen senses to outmaneuver both prey and rivals. In the quiet backwaters and floodplains, a crucial new group was evolving: the lobe-finned fishes. These remarkable animals would change the course of life on Earth forever. Their stout, fleshy fins were supported by robust bones, forming a structure strikingly similar to the limbs of future land vertebrates. These fins allowed them to maneuver through dense vegetation and even prop themselves up in shallow water. Some lobe-finned fish developed primitive lungs, enabling them to gulp air from the surface when oxygen levels in the water dropped dangerously low, a vital adaptation in the fluctuating Devonian climate. These evolutionary innovations set the stage for one of the most profound transitions in the history of life, the move from water to land. But the Devonian was not only the age of fish, it was also the dawn of the world's first forests, a green revolution that would reshape the planet's surface and atmosphere. On land, pioneering plants continued to evolve, spreading across floodplains and uplands. Mosses and liverworts gave way to towering club mosses, horsetails, and the first true ferns. These plants developed true roots, anchoring themselves firmly and drawing up water and nutrients from deep within the soil, which allowed them to colonize drier and more challenging environments. Strong, woody trunks evolved to support their increasing height, enabling these early trees to reach for sunlight above the dense undergrowth and to withstand storms and floods. Leaves, acting as primitive solar panels, dramatically increased the plant's ability to capture sunlight and perform photosynthesis, fueling rapid growth and the spread of forests. For the first time in Earth's history, immense forests of tall trees blanketed the land, stabilizing the soil, creating new habitats for countless organisms and pumping vast amounts of oxygen into the atmosphere, forever altering the planet's climate and chemistry. These lush, oxygen-rich forests provided the perfect environment for the next evolutionary leap, the transition of vertebrates from water to land, a journey that would give rise to the first tetrapods. Among the most extraordinary creatures of this time was Tiktaalik, a transitional form that offers a vivid snapshot of life's great migration from water to land. Discovered in the Canadian Arctic, Tiktaalik possessed the scales, gills, and fins of a fish, but also the ability to breathe air and support itself in shallow water. Its flattened skull and mobile neck, features more typical of amphibians, allowed it to lift its head above water and scan its surroundings for prey or danger. Most importantly, the bones inside Tiktaalik's fins were arranged in a pattern that closely mirrors the wrist and finger bones of land animals, marking a crucial step in the evolution of limbs. Tiktaalik was a true fishapod, a creature perfectly adapted for life in the shallow, swampy margins of the Devonian forests, able to prop itself up and explore the mysterious new world above the water's surface. In these ancient landscapes, the stage was set for the next great chapter in the story of life on Earth. The forests that first took root in the Devonian period flourished and spread across the globe during the Carboniferous, transforming the planet into a world unlike any we know today. This was an era defined by warmth and humidity, where vast, steamy swamps stretched for hundreds of kilometers, and the air was thick with moisture. The forests themselves were alien to modern eyes, dense, towering, and dominated by plant life that has long since vanished. Instead of familiar trees, these ancient woodlands were ruled by giant club mosses that soared over 30 meters high, immense tree ferns, and horsetails thicker than a human torso. When these colossal plants died, their remains toppled into the stagnant, oxygen-poor waters of the swamps, where decay was slow and incomplete. Over millions of years, thick layers of plant debris accumulated, compressed by the weight of new growth above, and were slowly transformed by heat and pressure into the vast coal beds that still fuel our world. The very name Carboniferous means coal-bearing, a testament to the immense legacy of these ancient forests. The explosive proliferation of plant life during this time had a profound and lasting impact on the planet's atmosphere. Through relentless photosynthesis, these plants drew down vast amounts of carbon dioxide and released oxygen in quantities never before seen. By the peak of the Carboniferous, atmospheric oxygen levels soared to an astonishing 35%, far higher than today's 21%. This oxygen-rich environment transformed life on land, especially for the invertebrates and amphibians that inhabited these lush, shadowy forests. Arthropods, with their simple respiratory systems, thrived in this new world, growing to sizes that defy imagination. The Carboniferous truly became a land of giants, where both plants and animals reached extraordinary proportions. In the dappled light beneath the canopy, dragonflies the size of modern seagulls darted between the ferns. The most famous of these aerial predators was Meganeura, a dragonfly relative with a wingspan reaching 70 centimeters, making it one of the largest insects ever to take flight. Meganeura would have been a swift and agile hunter, preying on other insects as it zipped through the humid air above the swampy ground. On the forest floor, even more astonishing giants crept among the fallen logs and decaying plant matter. Arthropleura, a colossal millipede-like arthropod, could reach lengths of over 2.5 meters, making it the largest land-dwelling invertebrate ever discovered. Amphibians too flourished in these damp, oxygen-rich conditions, evolving into forms that dwarfed their modern descendants, though they remained dependent on water for reproduction. But the Carboniferous was also a time of innovation. A crucial evolutionary leap occurred that would forever change life on land. The first true reptiles emerged, small and agile, venturing further from the water's edge than any vertebrate before them. Among the earliest was Hylonomus, a lizard-like pioneer that explored the dense undergrowth of these ancient forests. The key to their success was the amniotic egg, a remarkable adaptation that protected the developing embryo from desiccation and allowed it to breathe on land. This self-contained life support system, with its tough shell and specialized membranes, freed vertebrates from their reliance on water for reproduction. For the first time, eggs could be laid on dry land, opening up vast new territories for colonization. This evolutionary breakthrough allowed reptiles to leave the swamps behind, setting the stage for their conquest of the drier, more challenging environments that lay beyond the ancient forests. The final period of the Paleozoic Era was the Permian, a time when the world's landscapes were transformed into vast, sun-baked expanses of rock and sand, broken only by jagged mountain ridges and the occasional wind-sculpted outcrop. The world changed once again, as relentless geological forces reshaped the face of the planet. Over millions of years, the drifting continents crept inexorably toward one another, their collision sending shockwaves through the crust and raising new mountain chains. At last, they fused into a single colossal landmass, Pangaea, a supercontinent so immense it seemed to swallow the horizon, its edges lost in the haze of distance. Pangaea stretched from the frozen wastes of the south to the humid tropics of the north, a patchwork of deserts, mountains, and ancient forests, its sheer scale altering wind and ocean currents across the globe. The creation of Pangaea had a dramatic effect on the global climate, forging a world of extremes. Deep within the supercontinent's heart, the land became a parched wilderness, where the sun beat down mercilessly and the air shimmered with heat, while bone-dry winds scoured the cracked earth. The lush, tangled forests of the Carboniferous faded, replaced by hardy conifers and spiky seed ferns, their roots gripping the thin soil, their waxy needles adapted to survive months of drought and searing temperatures. In this unforgiving world, reptiles emerged as masters of survival. Their scaly, armor-like skin shimmered in the sunlight, sealing in precious moisture, while their amniotic eggs, tough and leathery, allowed them to lay their young far from water's edge. Agile and resilient, these reptiles fanned out across the continent, their clawed feet leaving tracks in the dust as they hunted, basked, and hid among the rocks and sparse vegetation. But they were not the only dominant group to roam this ancient land. Another lineage, the Synapsids, rose to prominence, creatures with sprawling limbs and powerful jaws, their bodies often covered in tough, leathery skin, their eyes alert and intelligent. Sometimes called mammal-like reptiles, Synapsids were a diverse group, ranging from small, nimble insect eaters to hulking predators. They are the ancestors of all mammals, their lineage stretching unbroken to the present day. For much of the Permian, Synapsids ruled the land. Some stalked the dry riverbeds in search of prey, their muscular bodies rippling beneath sun-baked skin, while others gathered in herds, their heavy jaws grinding the tough, fibrous plants of the arid plains. Among the most iconic of these was Dimetrodon, a formidable predator of the early Permian. With its sprawling gait and massive tooth-filled jaws, Dimetrodon prowled the rocky outcrops, its nostrils flaring as it scented the air for prey. Despite its reptilian appearance, it was more closely related to mammals than to any true reptile. Its most striking feature was the towering sail-like fin rising from its back, an intricate lattice of bone and skin, possibly flushed with color, used to absorb the morning sun or to intimidate rivals and attract mates. As the Permian progressed, new synapsid predators appeared like the gorgonopsids, sleek muscular hunters with elongated skulls and dagger-like canine teeth. These apex predators moved with a cat-like grace, their saber teeth flashing as they brought down prey in the open, sun-bleached plains, their dominance undisputed. Meanwhile, herbivorous synapsids like moschops lumbered through the dry undergrowth, their barrel-shaped bodies and powerful jaws perfectly adapted to crush the tough, spiny plants that dotted the landscape. Life in the Permian was a relentless contest of adaptation, every creature shaped by the demands of a world that was both beautiful and brutal. Oxygen levels once high began to fall, and the air grew thin and dusty. Plants withered, and every breath was a struggle for survival. Across the arid plains and rocky uplands, reptiles and synapsids vied for supremacy, their evolutionary arms race playing out in every shadow and sunbeam. The Permian world was a tapestry of life, strange, resilient, and endlessly inventive, its creatures locked in a delicate balance that seemed as if it might endure forever. Yet, beneath the surface, titanic forces gathered. As the Permian period drew to a close, a cataclysm of unimaginable scale was brewing deep within the earth, poised to shatter this ancient world and bring the era of the great synapsids and reptiles to a sudden, devastating end. The Paleozoic Era, a time of extraordinary evolutionary leaps and the flourishing of life, drew to a close not with a whimper, but with a cataclysm so profound that it nearly erased the very concept of survival from the planet. The Permian Triassic extinction event, ominously known as the Great Dying, unfolded around 252 million years ago. It stands as the most devastating mass extinction in Earth's history, a disaster that dwarfed all others in its scale and severity. In this bleak chapter, life teetered on the brink of total annihilation. Never before, nor since, has the biosphere come so close to being utterly extinguished. Unlike the asteroid-driven extinction that would later end the reign of the dinosaurs, this apocalypse was forged deep within the planet itself. The Earth became its own executioner. The trigger was a relentless series of volcanic eruptions in what is now Siberia, known as the Siberian Traps. These eruptions were not isolated events, but a sustained onslaught lasting hundreds of thousands of years. These were eruptions on a scale almost unimaginable today. Vast fissures split the crust, releasing torrents of molten rock and choking the skies with ash and toxic gases. Over time, these eruptions blanketed an area larger than all of Western Europe in basalt, fundamentally reshaping the landscape and atmosphere. Yet the lava itself was only the beginning. The true devastation came from what was unleashed into the air. The eruptions spewed colossal amounts of carbon dioxide and methane, greenhouse gases that rapidly transformed the planet's climate. These gases triggered a runaway greenhouse effect, trapping heat and driving global temperatures to unprecedented heights. Some estimates suggest that average temperatures soared by as much as 10 degrees Celsius, rendering vast regions inhospitable to life. The rapid, relentless warming was a death sentence for many ecosystems, already strained by environmental upheaval. The oceans, which had long been the cradle of life, suffered most. As surface waters heated, their ability to hold oxygen plummeted, creating vast, suffocating dead zones. Marine habitats, once vibrant and teeming, became graveyards. The collapse of oxygen levels suffocated countless species. Compounding the crisis, the oceans absorbed vast amounts of carbon dioxide, turning increasingly acidic and dissolving the very skeletons of marine organisms. For corals, mollusks, and countless other species, the changing chemistry spelled extinction. Their shells and skeletons simply could not form. As oxygen vanished, anaerobic bacteria flourished, releasing deadly hydrogen sulfide gas. This toxic cloud seeped from the oceans, poisoning the air and land alike. The result was a near-total collapse of global ecosystems. Forests withered, rivers dried, and the interconnected web of life unraveled. In the oceans, extinction swept through with merciless efficiency. An estimated 90 to 96% of all marine species disappeared forever. The once bustling reefs of the Permian seas fell silent, their intricate communities reduced to empty skeletons and dust. On land, the devastation was equally severe. Around 70% of all terrestrial vertebrate species vanished, leaving behind a world stripped of its diversity. The dominant synapsids, including the formidable gorgonopsids, suffered catastrophic losses, their reign brought to a sudden and brutal end. What remained was a barren, desolate world. Only the most resilient and adaptable forms of life endured, eking out an existence in the shadows of catastrophe. The story of life had reached its darkest hour. The world stood on the edge of oblivion, its future uncertain, its past buried beneath layers of ash and silence. The Great Dying was an unparalleled tragedy, a cataclysm that wiped out over 90% of marine species and 70% of terrestrial life. In its wake, the world was stripped bare, a reset button pressed on the grand experiment of life. The world that emerged from the ashes of the Permian extinction was a realm of silence and emptiness, where the echoes of lost forests and vanished creatures lingered in the air. Yet even in this desolation, the first signs of recovery began to appear. It was an empty world, full of vacant ecological niches, a blank slate waiting to be written upon. The land was dotted with only the hardiest survivors, primitive ferns, mosses, and a scattering of resilient invertebrates. The recovery was agonizingly slow, taking millions of years. Each new sprout, each inch of green was a hard-won victory against the lingering devastation, but life, as it always does, endured. The survivors, tiny, unassuming, yet astonishingly adaptable, became the seeds of future worlds. The few species that survived the apocalypse, often small, versatile, and resilient creatures, became the ancestors of everything that would follow. Their genetic legacy is woven into the fabric of all modern life. The end of the Paleozoic era was not just an ending, it was also a new beginning. The world was poised for a fresh evolutionary surge. The legacy of the 290 million years of the Paleozoic is all around us. The forests, rivers, and coastlines of today are shaped by the innovations and catastrophes of that ancient era. The fundamental body plans of animals, first established in the Cambrian explosion, persist to this day. The segmented limbs of arthropods, the gills of fish, the vertebrate spine, all are Paleozoic inventions, refined but never replaced. The conquest of the land by plants and animals, a journey begun in the Silurian and Devonian, permanently transformed the surface of our planet from barren rock into a living green world. Roots broke down stone, creating soil. Leaves captured sunlight, fueling new ecosystems. The vast forests of the Carboniferous not only gave us the coal that fueled our industrial revolution, but also set the stage for the rise of land-based animal life by enriching our atmosphere with oxygen. Dragonflies with meter-wide wingspans soared through humid air, and giant millipedes crawled beneath towering lycopsids. The great evolutionary arms race between predators and prey, which began with Anomalocaris and the trilobites, has continued unabated, driving the evolution of speed, intelligence, and defense in countless species. Every shell, spine, and camouflage pattern is a testament to this relentless struggle. The amniotic egg, a reptilian invention from the Carboniferous, was a key innovation that allowed vertebrates to conquer the continents. Freed from the need to lay eggs in water, reptiles spread into every terrestrial habitat, from arid deserts to dense forests, and the Synapsids, the group that dominated for much of the Permian before being decimated by the Great Extinction, did not disappear entirely. Their lineage, marked by unique jaw and skull features, would prove remarkably persistent. A few small, burrowing synapsids survived, and in the long shadow of the new era, they would slowly evolve, eventually giving rise to the mammals. Their descendants would inherit the night, developing warm blood and fur to thrive in the darkness. The end of the Paleozoic era cleared the way for a new group of reptiles to rise and take over the world. The archosaurs, with their upright posture and powerful lungs, were poised for dominance. These were the archosaurs, and among them were the dinosaurs. Their rise would reshape every ecosystem, from river deltas to mountain valleys. The devastation of the Great Dying created an opportunity that the dinosaurs would seize with spectacular success, leading to their own incredible long reign in the Mesozoic era. The world would never be the same. The epic tale of the Paleozoic, from the first explosion of life to its near-total annihilation, is a powerful reminder of the fragility and resilience of life. Catastrophe and renewal are written into the rocks and the genes of every living thing. It is the deep and dramatic foundation upon which the entire modern world is built. Every forest, every animal, every breath of oxygen traces its roots to the innovations and upheavals of the Paleozoic, a legacy written in stone and alive in every corner of the earth. Beneath the surface of ancient seas and the shadows of primeval forests, a silent conversation was taking place, a complex web of chemical signals, vibrations, and subtle cues that shaped the drama of Paleozoic life. This was the hidden language of ecosystems, an intricate network of communication far older than words or sound. In the dense underwater gardens of the Devonian, corals and sponges released chemical plumes, signaling territory or warning of approaching predators. Tiny trilobites, sensitive to the faintest tremor, could detect the movement of a lurking eurypterid, a giant sea scorpion, long before it came into view. Across muddy seafloors, bioluminescent bacteria glowed in the darkness, attracting prey or luring symbiotic partners. On land, the first forests were alive with unseen exchanges. Giant club mosses and horsetails released clouds of spores, filling the air with the promise of new life. Underground, the earliest fungi formed alliances with plant roots, trading nutrients in a silent pact that would shape the evolution of both kingdoms. Through these mycorrhizal networks, plants shared resources and even chemical warnings, forming a primitive communication system that persists to this day. Insects, too, played their part. Early hexapods danced on forest leaf litter, leaving trails of pheromones, a chemical script guiding mates, marking food, or warning rivals. Millipedes, threatened by predators, unleashed defensive compounds, their scents drifting through the humid air as invisible cries for help. These ancient conversations governed every aspect of survival, from predator and prey to plant and pollinator, to the very balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide that made life possible. Though silent and unseen, this language bound together the inhabitants of Paleozoic Earth, weaving them into a single, responsive whole. Today, echoes of these primordial signals remain: the way fungi and plants communicate, the warning chemicals of insects, the subtle cues of marine life, all are living relics of a world where life learned to sense, to signal, and to survive together. The secret language of Paleozoic ecosystems endures, a hidden legacy that continues to shape the living world. As the sun dipped below the horizon in the Paleozoic world, a different realm awakened, the ancient night. While daylight hours teemed with the bustling activity of trilobites, armored fish, and towering plants, darkness brought a unique cast of survivors and strategies into focus. In these primeval nights, the absence of sunlight was more than a daily cycle. It was a challenge that shaped evolution in profound ways. Beneath the surface of shallow seas, bioluminescence became a beacon in the inky gloom. Simple organisms, from glowing plankton to enigmatic comb jellies, painted the water with shifting patterns of blue and green light. These displays were more than beautiful. They were tools for survival, lures for prey, warnings to rivals or camouflage against predators lurking below. On land, the earliest forests cast deep shadows, creating habitats where light was always scarce. Here, life adapted with remarkable ingenuity. Early arthropods developed heightened senses, relying on delicate antennae to navigate and find food in the darkness beneath ferns and club mosses. Some millipedes and springtails, sensitive to the faintest vibrations, could detect the approach of danger long before any visual cue. Night in the Paleozoic was also a time of transformation. As temperatures dropped, amphibians retreated to moist burrows, conserving water and energy. Fungi thrived in the cool darkness, breaking down fallen wood and leaf litter, fueling the cycle of decay and renewal that sustained the first terrestrial ecosystems. Even in the most forbidding hours, the pulse of life persisted. The interplay of darkness and adaptation spurred innovation, prompting the evolution of new senses, survival tactics, and ways to communicate. In these shadows, the boundaries of possibility stretched, and the roots of nocturnal life as we know it began to take hold. The night of the Paleozoic was not a time of silence or stillness, but a hidden frontier, a world where life learned to thrive without the sun, shaping the resilience and diversity of all that would follow. As we listen closely to the ancient world, a new dimension emerges, the soundscape of the Paleozoic. Long before the first birds sang or mammals called to one another, the air and water were alive with the subtle, primal noises of early life. Imagine the gentle clatter of trilobite shells scraping across the ocean floor, the muffled clicks and snaps as armored fish fed and fought in the murky shallows. In the dense forests, the rustle of giant club moss leaves and the soft patter of raindrops on fern fronds created a ceaseless living background. The wind, threading through towering horsetails and ancient pines, whispered across the land, carrying with it the scents and spores of a world in constant flux. Beneath the surface, the Paleozoic seas resonated with faint vibrations, waves generated by the undulating bodies of eurypterids, the distant tremors of predatory Dunkleosteus, and the delicate hum of early cephalopods jetting through the water. Even the silent work of fungi decomposing fallen wood contributed to the slow symphony of decay, a process as vital as any roar or call. On land, the chorus was quieter but no less complex. The soft crunch of detritivores breaking down organic matter, the subtle movements of amphibians slipping through leaf litter, and the gentle buzz of ancient insects all mingled in a tapestry of sound lost to time. These were the voices of a planet in transition, an Earth finding its rhythm through the lives of its earliest inhabitants. Though we can no longer hear these ancient sounds, their echoes remain in the living world today. A reminder that even in the deepest past, the story of life was never told in silence. While the sounds of the Paleozoic have faded, the colors that once painted this ancient world remain hidden beneath layers of stone. Imagine a planet transformed by pigments and patterns far unlike anything we see today. In the sunlit shallows, the ocean shimmered with the iridescent shells of trilobites, their exoskeletons reflecting blues, greens, and coppery reds, hues shaped by minerals in the water and the chemistry of their bodies. On the seafloor, carpets of crinoids unfurled feathery arms in delicate yellows and purples, swaying with each passing current. Above the waves, the first forests cast deep, dappled shadows. Towering leucopsids and horsetails rose in columns of dark green, their trunks banded with subtle shades of silver and charcoal. The forest floor was a mosaic of deep emerald mosses, russet-brown decaying logs, and the pale, ghostly white of fungal networks winding through the soil. Even the air itself could shift in color, thick with golden spores released in great clouds during the height of summer, briefly tinting the light and settling like pollen on every surface. In the wetlands, the skin of early amphibians glistened with mottled patterns, olive, ochre, and slate, camouflaging them against the tangled roots and leaf litter. Dragonflies with wingspans as wide as a hawk's flashed metallic blues and greens as they darted through shafts of sunlight. At dusk, the world transformed again, as the low angle of the sun set the landscape ablaze with warm, coppery light, reflecting off still water and illuminating the ancient canopy from below. These colors, though long vanished, shaped the lives of Paleozoic creatures, guiding them, hiding them, and signaling danger or opportunity. They were as much a part of the ancient earth as any sound or movement, a visual symphony now preserved only in rare fossils and the imagination of those who seek to uncover the lost palette of a forgotten world. Beneath the waves of the Paleozoic, life was not just vibrant, it was an endless experiment in architecture. The ancient seas teemed with structures both alien and ingenious, built not by hands but by nature's earliest engineers. Vast reefs rose from the ocean floor, not of coral as today, but constructed by stromatoporoids and tabulate corals, layered sponges and colonial creatures fusing calcium into sprawling fortresses. These reefs cradled entire ecosystems, their labyrinthine chambers sheltering trilobites, armored jawless fish, and the first tentative predators. Elsewhere, brachiopods anchored themselves in dense beds, their shells forming living pavements that stretched for miles. Crinoids, the so-called sea lilies, rooted into the sediment, weaving dense underwater meadows with their flexible stems. Each structure shaped the currents, filtered the water, and provided sanctuary from the ever-present threat of predation. Even the humble burrows and tunnels carved by worms and arthropods played a vital role, aerating the seafloor and creating a living, breathing foundation for future life. Above these bustling cities, orthocone cephalopods drifted, long conical shells acting as living submarines, casting shadows over the complex topography below. The architecture of the ancient seas was in constant flux, built up by life, then toppled by shifting tides, storms, and the slow march of geological time. Though these structures have long since eroded, their imprint remains etched in stone, fossilized blueprints of a world where evolution's creativity was measured not in years, but in the rise and fall of entire underwater metropolises.